She gave up food for books. Then the millionaire CEO made a shocking decision at 3 a.m. The old library sat at the end of an empty street, its windows dark, as if holding secrets older than time itself. Whispers of the rumors swirled like the autumn leaves that danced wildly in the wind. They said Jennifer had abandoned everything: her friends, her job, even food, all for the love of the written word. A woman possessed. The locals watched with a mix of awe and disbelief as she carried stacks of books, her pale fingers tracing the spines as if they were long-lost lovers. With each passing day, she seemed to fade, growing thinner, almost ghost-like, yet her eyes sparkled with an otherworldly glow, reflecting an obsession that felt both thrilling and terrifying. The night she met Charles, the enigmatic millionaire CEO, the air thickened with electricity. He arrived at the library like a storm, unexpected and forceful. His tailored suit seemed out of place against the jagged bricks and dust that littered the ancient floor. As he approached Jennifer, the flickering candlelight cast shadows that danced over their faces, intensifying the gravity of the moment. "I hear you love books," he said, his voice smooth and deep, as if he controlled the very night itself. "What if I could offer you a chance to write your own story?" Tension hung in the room. Was he for real? Her heart raced as she envisioned the possibilities. But what did his offer entail? A lump formed in her throat. She was ready to risk everything. But what kind of story would that be? How far was she willing to go? "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the clock struck 3, a loud crash reverberated through the library. Books flew off the shelves, pages fluttering like frightened birds. The dim light overhead flickered violently. What had just happened? Jennifer's breath caught in her chest. Charles's expression shifted from confident to alarmed. Confusion etched on his face. Had he made a mistake? Was this a sign, an omen of chaos about to unfold? The fragile line between reality and fantasy blurred, and Jennifer stood on the edge, teetering between two worlds. What lay ahead? Would she embrace the unknown, or retreat into the shadows that had devoured so many before her? The noise echoed like a thunderclap in the silent library. Jennifer's heart raced, each beat a drum of uncertainty. She turned to Charles, whose face had drained of color. The once commanding CEO now seemed like a mere mortal caught in a wicked storm. "Did you see that?" she gasped, narrowing her eyes toward the shelves. The air was heavy with anticipation, as if the library itself was holding its breath. Books lay scattered on the floor, their bindings broken, pages splayed open like silent screams begging to be read. She stepped back, instinctively clutching a hardcover novel to her chest, as if it were a shield against the chaos. Charles's brows furrowed. This place, it has a history. Dark secrets. His voice shook, eroding the confident facade he had carried in. Both of them felt at the weight of the library's past pressing down like an invisible hand. Jennifer had immersed herself in these stories, but had she unknowingly awakened something? Shadows danced around them, whispering tales long forgotten, threads of madness clinging to the silence. A chill crawled up her spine. What if she hesitated, biting her lip? What if this is a warning? Or an invitation? Charles interjected, a glimmer of something almost sinister flashing in his eyes. The challenge rolled off his tongue. What if it's a chance to uncover the truth behind the stories? Her pulse quickened at the thought. Was this what she had been looking for? The push, the thrill of delving deeper into the unknown? Yet, doubt gnawed at her. A voice echoed in her head, whispering dangers she couldn't ignore. Before she could respond, the lights flickered again, plunging them into total darkness. Jennifer froze, her breath quickening, panic clawing at her. In that moment, she could hear nothing but the rhythmic pounding of her heart. Then came a soft rustle, like leaves crunching, reverberating in the still air, a different kind of noise, something more unsettling. "Stay close," Charles urged, moving into the shadows, a protector or a predator. She struggled to find clarity as her stomach twisted in knots, hunger battling with fear. Was this the story she wanted to write? One filled with specters and whispers. They edged carefully towards the source of the disturbance, each step measured, every instinct screaming at her to turn back. But curiosity shackled her, its chains both intoxicating and terrifying. With trembling hands, she pulled a flashlight from her bag, and the narrow beam cut through the darkness, illuminating dust motes swirling like ghosts in the night air. The pattern on the floor caught her eye, an outline that seemed almost intricate, a faded mark that had been hidden beneath layers of dust. "What is this?" she whispered, crouching low to examine it, oblivious to the flickering light behind her. But Charles didn't answer. Instead, he was going pale again, eyes fixated on something beyond her. "Jennifer, look out!" he shouted, the urgency in his voice pulling her gaze back just in time to see a figure emerging from the shadows. The figure lingered mysterious and shrouded in darkness. The air thickened, and Jennifer felt the floor slip beneath her feet as reality crumbled. Who was this? Another character in the story? Or had everything spiraled into a nightmare? Just as clarity seemed to flicker into view, the lights burst back on, revealing the figure, an ancient librarian, her face a mask of secrets and sorrow. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed, and those words slashed through the air like glass. What did that mean? Jennifer's mind world. Had she found the key that would unlock a world beyond her wildest imagination? Or had she unwittingly crossed into a realm better left untouched? As fear enveloped her, a single thought pierced through the chaos. They had opened Pandora's box, and now there was no turning back. What would the next chapter of this wild story hold? As the woman advanced, a whisper of horror slipped through her lips. "You've awakened what should stay asleep." The librarian's voice hung heavy in the air, a chilling warning that sliced through the chaos. Jennifer's grip tightened around the novel, heart pounding like a hammer against steel. Whatever secrets this place concealed, it was clear they were not ready to be unveiled. "What does that mean?" She managed to stammer, the taste of dread coating her tongue. The librarian's ancient eyes, deep-set and hollow, glimmered with something unreadable. There was more to this woman than just a keeper of dusty books. Incautious, the librarian replied, her voice a low rasp. "You've drawn the curtains back on things that slumber unbidden. Stories are not mere words." She stretched out a hand, claw-like fingers beckoning them forward. Yet the invitation felt more like a threat. Charles stepped in front of Jennifer, instincts screaming that something horrific was at play. "We're not here to cause trouble," he asserted, voice firm but wavering. "We came to learn." "Learn?" The librarian echoed, a brittle laugh escaping her lips. "What is knowledge if it brings ruin? To step into the world of stories is to hold the blade, and life here is but a fragile whisper." Jennifer's breath hitched. Her fascination had melted into something dark and serpentine. The story she had craved, the truths she sought, felt overshadowed by a sense of dread pouring in from the edges of her world. Something shifted behind the librarian, an unseen weight in the air. A low, rumbling growl sounded, like thunder rolling just beneath the surface. Charles turned, eyes wide, searching for the source, but the space around them had twisted. The walls felt alive, bulging with history, secrets pulsating in rhythm with their hearts. "Get out!" The librarian shrieked suddenly, her voice slicing through the tension. "Before it's too late." But what could they leave behind? So many stories clung to the walls like ivy. Fear turned Jennifer's legs to lead, and she remained transfixed, caught in a battle between her insatiable curiosity and the primal urge to flee. "Jennifer," Charles called, eyes wide. He was moving, pulling her back slightly, but not without glancing at the librarian, as if seeking further understanding that would never come. "We need to go now." As they stumbled back, the lights flickered again, a strobe of despair illuminating fleeting shadows. Jennifer noticed fleeting glimpses of figures smiling hungrily at them from the periphery, grotesque shapes warping in and out of clarity, beckoning in distorted whispers that twined around her thoughts. They were waiting, hungry for the warmth of flesh and the light of curiosity that had lured her here. "No!" she shouted, ripping free of Charles. She felt alive, raw, pounding with adrenaline. "We need to know." Before she could think rationally, she reached for a thick old tome on the shelf, a sense of desperation propelling her. It was chaos, the pages flurrying like trapped birds. The moment her fingers closed around it, the growl deepened, resonating from the very heart of the library. Charles looked horrified, his face exposed beneath the fluorescent lights. Jennifer dropped it, but as the dark librarian's eyes locked onto the book, something shifted within her demeanor, a glimmer of acknowledgement, or was it dread? "Foolish child," she muttered, stepping forward. The air crackled, electricity and terror intertwining. "Leave it!" Charles was shouting now, but it was too late. Jennifer could feel the pulse of the library thrumming in her veins, the weight of her choice compressing around her chest. The moment stretched out, where fear and fascination coiled into one. "Do you understand what you've done?" the librarian hissed, and her voice wrapped around them like chains. Jennifer felt her heart race, anticipation buzzing like a live wire. But the real question gnawed deeper. What exactly had she unleashed? The ground beneath them quaked, and the shadows converged, twisting and writhing. She and T just opened a book. She de-summoned something far darker. As the air thickened, suffocating them in malevolence, Jennifer realized truth would come at a cost, and that cost might be far greater than she had ever imagined. With terror gnawing at her, she gasped, "What's going to happen now?" And in answering silence, the library seemed to echo a sinister promise. "You've only just begun." The atmosphere in the library transformed, a tangible darkness unfurling like a predator prepared to strike. Jennifer and Charles stood frozen, hearts racing, a single heartbeat echoing between them in a suffocating silence. The once innocuous shelves now appeared menacing, the tomes lining them brimming with ancient malice. "What have we done?" Charles whispered, eyes darting from the librarian, who had grown impossibly tall, a dark silhouette looming beneath the flickering lights. The growl grew louder, a deep rumble vibrating through the very stones of the library, shaking the dust off artifacts that had long been untouched. Jennifer could feel that growl deep in her bones, a primal call reverberating through the darkness that threatened to engulf them. "Foolish children," the librarian hissed, her voice weaving through the tangled shadows like a serpent. "This book is not merely words. It is a door, a gateway." Jennifer felt the weight of the tome in her hands, the leather binding cool against her palm. In her heart, a mix of terror and exhilaration twisted what lay behind that door. Could it truly lead to the things she had only dared to dream of? Suddenly, the air shifted, an unnatural chill seeping into her skin. Ghostly figures flickered, materializing from the damp corners of the library, their expressions frozen in extravagant smiles that hinted at wicked delight. They reached out with skeletal fingers, yearning for something, or perhaps someone, to claim. "Charles, we can't," Jennifer began, but he grabbed her wrist, his grip like a vice. "No, we're not delving deeper into whatever this is," he pleaded, his face pale under the stark lights, trapped between her wild curiosity and his desperate caution. But the spell of the book was already pulling her in, a sinister force swirling like a tempest within her. The librarian moved closer, her eyes gleaming with dark glee. "You open the gateway, and now it demands to be fed." Jennifer took a step forward, jaw clenched, fighting between the urge to flee and the compelling desire for knowledge. "What will it take?" she challenged, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. The librarian's smile widened, revealing teeth that were unnaturally sharp. Every story has its price. Knowledge, my dear, is not free. Her finger gestured toward the phantoms that swirled around them. These souls hunger for a tale. What you seek lies beyond, but to transport it, you must offer a sacrifice, something of your own. What? No, Charles exclaimed, panic overtaking his voice. You can't just. Jennifer wrestled with the weight of the moment. She understood deeply the absurdity of her desire. But in the pit of her stomach, the hunger for knowledge battled against her instinct for survival. I'd do anything, she murmured, her heart racing with defiance. Anything? The librarian crooned. A flicker of interest ignited behind her hollow eyes. Before Jennifer could clarify, a tortured scream echoed from the walls, a sound of despair and anguish. It was a voice that spoke of infinite stories lost, stolen, and betrayed. The shadows tightened around them, their whispers blooming into a cacophony of dread. Choose wisely, the librarian warned, her claw-like hand pointing to the book. Will you give them a story worth sacrificing yourself for? The walls felt alive, pulsating with entrapment. Every moment stretched like a rubber band, taut and threatening to snap. Jennifer's breath quickened, each inhale tasting of iron and fear. She could feel the eyes of the trapped souls boring into her, demanding their tribute. In that moment, she understood the choice that lay before her. To pursue the stories she craved, to unlock secrets long buried, she would have to sacrifice not only herself, but the purity of her intentions. As the shadows converged, darkness seeping into the corners of her vision, she whispered, "What's the cost?" The librarian's voice rang out like a death knell, chilling and stark. A piece of yourself for a glimpse of truth that could destroy you. The realization crashed down on her what truths were. Worth her very soul. The shadows closed in, and she trembled at her own ambition. A storm brewed within her, and only one question remained. Could her thirst for knowledge outpace her fear of the unknown? With a final chilling rustle, a figure emerged from the darkness, and the air froze with expectation. In that moment, the price of truth unveiled itself. The journey had only just begun. The darkness pulsed around Jennifer, shifting like a living creature. She felt an invisible weight pressing down on her, as if the very air conspired to crush her spirit. A cacophony of whispers curled around her, each voice a reminder of sacrifices made long ago, lives extinguished by the voracious hunger for stories and secrets. Jennifer, Charles' voice broke through her daze, laced with desperation. He pulled her back, eyes wide, as the librarian's silhouette loomed over them. Don't do this. We can find another way. But the librarian's grin widened, dripping with anticipation. Another way? There is no return once the pages are turned. The truth is a relentless beast, always seeking blood, and it claws at the souls of the foolish. Jennifer's heart thundered. She felt torn between the dread pulsating through her veins and the wild, insatiable curiosity fanning the flames of desire within her. What kind of truth? She managed to ask, her voice a mere whisper against the growing swell of darkness. Truths that can change your very essence, the librarian hissed, reaching for the book. But every truth has its shadow, and shadows depend on darkness to thrive. The figures surrounding them twisted and twirled, echoing a painful longing. Their hollow eyes bore into Jennifer, pleading for release, for a story to awaken them from their eternal slumber. Each piercing gaze felt like a knife slicing through her resolve. Every shadow lurking around her screamed for a story to latch onto, a fresh tale to claim. She hesitated. A piece of myself? Yes, dear child, the librarian cooed, her voice dripping with sweet malice. Not just your skin, but perhaps a memory, a regret. Something that haunts you, your essence will serve as tribute. The word haunt pricked Jennifer's mind. Secrets from her past surfaced, long buried under the weight of time. What if releasing that burden could open a door to understanding? But at what cost? Jennifer, don't do this. Charles screamed again, shaking her gently, as if trying to rattle sense back into her. Fear gripped his voice, but hers wrapped tightly around her heart, blinding her to anything but the allure of possibilities. What truths could she bring forth? What realities could she unlock? The shadows were closing in tighter, weaving a tapestry of darkness that pulsed like an impending storm. Jennifer took a deep, shaky breath, letting the weight of her decision settle into her bones. "I'll do it," she declared, the words falling like stones into a chasm of uncertainty. "No," Charles shouted, panic-stricken, his face a portrait of horror. "You're giving in to this madness." But the librarian clapped her hands with glee, and the shadows howled as they closed around her. "Very well. Let us begin the sacrifice," she sneered, her eyes sparkling with malevolent delight. As the tome's pages flipped on their own, the air thrummed with electric energy. One by one, Jennifer felt pieces of herself, mementos of her past, being etched from her consciousness, dark spots fading like old photos. Regret seeped out, memories slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. "Jennifer, stop!" Charles cried, his voice breaking, heartache filling his tone as he reached desperately to pull her back. But even as she stepped deeper into shadow, she sensed a flicker of warmth, a sensation of connection she hadn't felt in years. The moment felt fleeting and profound, the taste of power and knowledge intoxicating. Then came a deafening roar, unlike anything she'd experienced, a culmination of every story ever silenced echoing back at her. It crushed against her like a tidal wave, the energy palpable, raw, ancient, and terrifying. As her vision blurred, she felt a shift within her. Traffic lights blinked into focus, revealing not just who she was, but who she could become. A bone-chilling laugh erupted from the librarian, reverberating through the library's hallowed halls. "You think you control it? Oh, foolish child! You have yet to discover the true nature of your sacrifice." In that instant, clarity shattered her intoxication. Moonlight streamed through a cracked window, illuminating her determination. "Charles, I can't let this happen," she screamed, but the darkness around her crackled with energy, pulling her deeper into the abyss. An ominous truth churned within the growing shadows. Would she emerge transformed, or would she be forever bound to the narratives of a lost? As she felt a final tether snap within her being, an unearthly scream filled the air, echoing like thunder. And in that heartbeat of terror, a figure flickered before her, stark and chilling, a specter that seemed familiar. "Jennifer," the specter's voice called, a painful reminder of choices that lay ahead. What had she awakened? What more would she have to sacrifice? In the thickening shadows, a new truth loomed, breathlessly waiting to be unraveled. Jennifer gasped as the specter's form materialized, its features glimmering in the dim light. It felt wrong, like a dream that edged too close to horror. The face was eerily familiar, a specter of someone she thought had vanished from her life long ago, someone she had buried deep within her memories. It was her younger self, the one who had laughed freely, who had loved without reservation. "Why have you called me forth?" the specter asked, voice trembling with the echoes of faded joys. "What part of yourself did you leave behind?" The librarian's laughter slithered through the air, a wicked melody of triumph. "Oh, but you've done more than simply awaken shadows, dear Jennifer. You've unearthed the remnants of every longing and regret, and they are hungrier than you are." Jennifer's heart raced. A whirlwind of emotions tugged at her, and the flickering figure of her past began to dissolve, leaving only the heavy ache of its absence. The specter was a fragment of who she used to be, a reminder of innocence lost in the maze of adult decisions and fears. She struggled against the hold of the darkness, but it coiled tighter, stinging like 1,000 needles biting at her resolve. "No!" she screamed, her voice barely above a whisper, fully aware of the librarian's watchful gaze, every glint of malice wrapping around her words. "I don't want this. I want to go back." Charles, eyes glazing over with panic, watched helplessly as the shadows wrapped around Jennifer like a shroud. "Fight it, Jen. You're stronger than this. Remember who you are? The roiling shadows began to recede for just a moment, drawn back like the tide. A spark erupted in her chest, a flicker of her younger self's courage pushing to break free, an impulse to reclaim what had been lost. I'm not a ghost, she shouted, defiant. Not yet, the librarian hissed, her voice a velvety taunt. But with each choice, you tip the scales. You can throw down the mask of foolish hope or embrace the very darkness you fear. Suddenly, the book opened wider, its pages turning furiously as if a tempest roared from within. Old stories swirled around her, vivid and electric. She could almost taste the salt of the sea, could hear the whispers of those who had fought and failed before her. They begged, cried, and called for her to join them, to be part of something greater. But what greater calling came at the cost of her core? Was her essence worth the stories woven into those pages? Jennifer, please. Charles' voice cracked through the noise, piercing her heart. His desperation wrapped around her like a lifeline. She locked eyes with him, searching for a flicker of hope among the chaos. In that moment, she realized that love, even in the face of darkness, could be the very key that set her free. The shadows hissed loud, clawing at her instinctively. You really think love can save you? Love was never a weapon in this place. Maybe not, she said, resolve hardening within her. But it's the one thing that makes all of this worth fighting for. The librarian let out a furious shriek, as if her very essence was being severed. The whispers around them morphed into a dark tide, threatening to drown her foremost thoughts. But Jennifer clung fiercely to the light she felt from Charles. With a sudden fierce resolve, she closed her eyes and summoned every ounce of herself, every piece of joy, every moment etched in love, a remembrance of who she could be again. Let me go, she yelled, and in a burst of adrenaline, she thrust her hands toward the swirling darkness. The shadows writhed, recoiling from her declaration. For an electric heartbeat, everything was silent, suspended in a moment of impossible clarity. Then the world erupted into chaos, the air vibrating with an otherworldly hum, shattering her fragile connections. She felt the fragments of her past and present colliding in a rush of confounding pain, as the fabric of reality tore around her. She glimpsed the dark figure of the librarian faltering, her malicious grin fading into something almost human fear. The librarian's true face was a reflection of every shadow that had ever haunted her. But just before the storm of energy shattered their world, a spark ignited deep within the library, a flicker of forgotten hope. If she could wield her essence, if she could defy the darkness, then, just like that, all was abruptly still. What had become of her sacrifice? Had she gained enough power to rewrite the story? Or would she find herself lost in an even deeper abyss? Nothing remained but silence, and in that stillness, she understood what was truly at stake. In the eerie silence that followed, Jennifer's heart thundered her chest. It was as if time stretched and twisted around her, compressing her thoughts into a single, sharp point of clarity. She stood on the precipice of an unknown, surrounded by the remnants of her past and the specter of potential doom. But then, something shifted. The oppressive darkness that had wrapped around her began to morph, taking on a different tone. The swirling whispers started quieting, like the fading rush of a distant storm. She blinked, suddenly aware that she was no longer alone. Charles's silhouette emerged from the thickening gloom, his eyes steady and fierce. "Stay with me, Jennifer," he urged, his voice pushing through the fog that clouded her mind. "Trust yourself. You've come too far to back down now." The intensity in his voice ignited a flame inside her. Had she really summoned the strength to defy this haunting darkness? Determination surged within, fueled by the flicker of hope she had felt moments before. "I won't just give up," she stammered, disbelief mixed with a budding sense of power. "I can defeat this." But as she spoke, the world around her trembled. The librarian's shadows slithered back, swirling feverishly, as if sensing her resurgence. She could feel the weight of old regrets pressing down on her like steel chains, each memory a tether threatening to drown her back into submission. "Run, Jennifer." The urgency in Charles' tone jolted her, shaking her from her stupor. "You can't let them win." Yet something deep within her refused to let go of this moment. With each word she uttered, strength flooded her veins. The lines of her past choices illuminated around her, like flickering candles against the relentless dark. "I want to hide. I will remember every laugh, every tear, every moment that made me who I am." The librarian's laughter morphed into a low growl. "Foolish girl, you think your memories can save you? They are mine to consume." Jennifer took a deep breath, recalling her younger self, the girl who danced in the rain, who dreamt without confines. "You're not in charge of my memories," she shouted defiantly. "Those joys are mine to cherish." In an instant, the shadows surged, attacking her with a flurry of tortured images, lost friendships, mistakes, painful moments that clawed at her heart. But Jennifer charged forward, raising her hands as if to shield herself. She drew from the light of memory the good, the radiant pieces of her soul she thought had faded into whispers. "Enough," she cried, her voice grounding herself amidst the chaos. "You want tea? Take me." With each defiant shout, the darkness seemed to pull back, a storm retreating from the shore. Fear crumbled away, replaced by clarity. She felt a warmth enveloping her, vibrant and alive. The shadows shrieked, morphing desperately away from her reclaiming light. Suddenly, the library around her began to shift, shelves bending, pages fluttering to life like startled birds. A massive wall opened, revealing a swirling portal of pure, blinding light. "Jennifer," Charles pleaded, an edge of panic holding his words like a taut string. "That essay way out." "Come with me, Charles," she yelled back, urgency rising. But he hesitated, his face etched with doubt. "What if it's a trap? Then we'll face it together." She shot back, the words burning in her throat. Love and fear intertwined, pushing her forward into that blinding abyss. But as she approached, strange tendrils of shadow lashed out, grasping at the very fabric of her being. A voice, low and sinister, echoed in her ears. "Do you really think you can escape?" "This is just the beginning." Jennifer froze as the weight of the librarian's words sunk in. Was running truly an escape, or just another trap? The light sparkled with possibility, yet darkness clawed at her heels. "Choose, Jennifer." The decision loomed heavy as the shadows whispered sweetly, reveling in the hesitation, heightening her doubts. She felt herself teetering on the edge, unsure whether to leap into the light or stand ground against the encroaching dark. Her heart pounded in urgent rhythm. The world around her pulsed with suspense. Would she embrace the light, risking it all, or would she give in to the shadows that promised familiarity? With breath held tightly in her chest, she took one last look back at Charles, and at the library that had been her prison. Time seemed to stand still, but in that stillness, she knew one truth. Something must break. What would she decide, and what awaited on the other side of that shimmering threshold? A heartbeat, then another. Jennifer could feel time snapping like a taut string, ready to snap and unleash chaos. The weight hung heavily, suffocating her inside the library's crumbling walls. One decision, one leap. The shadows hissed, wrapping around her like a coiled serpent ready to strike. She could hear the librarian's taunts echoing in the hollows of her mind. "You think memories can save you? You're just a flicker in the dark." But the flicker was warm. It grew stronger as she clutched the dazzling light calling her name. It promised safety, a way out. Could she brave the unknown? The tug of the dark lurked behind her, but the portal pulsed, beckoning her as if it understood her pain, her struggle. "Jennifer," Charles's voice broke through the clamor. "You need to decide." His words sliced through the confusion. She had to decide. Cold sweat dampened her palms. Either face the darkness suffocating her or chase that blinding light. "Stay with me, Charles." The words escaped her lips, but they carried an uncertainty that gnawed at her insides. And then, the shadows lunged. With a primal scream, Jennifer surged forward. The world inside her felt like a battlefield of war between freedom and confinement. With every ounce of strength, she broke through forceful tendrils grasping at her soul. "I will not give up," she leaped. In that split second, the shadows let out a wretched howl, a sound so chilling it sent shivers through her. The light swallowed her whole, each thread of her body stretching to touch the brilliance. A kaleidoscope of colors exploded around her as she whirled through the portal. Then the world fell silent. Dizziness enveloped her, muted and bright all at once. She landed unceremoniously on a hard, polished surface. Jennifer blinked rapidly against the glare. She was in a vast white room filled with bookshelves that reached toward an unset sky. This place felt familiar, yet haunting. It was as if she was standing in the heart of her desires, surrounded by novels waiting to be opened. But where was Charles? Panic ignited in her chest. She spun around, searching, calling for him. "Charles!" Silence answered. The air felt thick with anxiety, the haunting echoes of the past creeping in. Where was he? Suddenly, the glimmering walls began to shift like quicksand, molding and reforming. The books, once silent, rustled alive with whispers, fragments of stories yearning to be told. "Welcome home, Jennifer," they murmured. "You have always belonged with us." "Belonged?" she whispered, stumbling as uncertainty washed over her. This wasn't safety, it was a trap. The joy of memories began twisting into a sinister reality. She felt the weight of so many lives held within these pages. This isn't right. The shadows weren't outside anymore. They lurked in the corners of the room, flickering like black flames. Almost instinctively, her heart clenched. She felt them urging forward a darkness, trying to consume even her vibrant moments. "Leave me alone," she shouted, thrusting her hands out. The room quivered, the shelves vibrating with her fury. But the shadows only advanced, muting the whispers into a deafening roar. "You can't deny us. We are your past. No, I want to accept this." Jennifer's scream was pure power, enough to crack the walls around her. With each syllable, the shadows pulled back, retreating ever so slightly into dim recesses. In that moment, she finally understood the scholar's dilemma: commit to memories that chained them or cast off the shadows to embrace unknown possibilities. But just then, a piercing light erupted behind her, a doorway, a shimmering fracture in the very fabric of this realm. Dim silhouettes lurked behind it. People? Shadows? "Follow the light, Jennifer." A familiar voice beckoned from within the brilliance. "Charles?" She shot a glance back at the swirling darkness, her heart torn. "What are you doing?" "Jennifer, come here." He reached for her, the light pouring around him. Yet the shadows writhed, frantic and desperate, blocking her path. Could she trust the warmth emanating from Charles, or would the shadows drag her back into their clutches? It was a gamble, and she was terrified. The decision loomed again, thickening the air around her. With a pounding heart, she took a step toward the light, but the shadows tightened their grasp, pulling her back. Would she succumb to the familiar, or leap into the unknown risks for a chance at true freedom this time? The moment Jennifer reached for the light, a fierce wave of darkness surged, making it nearly impossible to breathe. It clawed at her limbs, a thief trying to drag her back into its depths. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, but the flicker of hope, Charles' voice, pulled her forward, urging her to break free. "Don't give in," he urged, his silhouette rippling as though the light was fighting against the shadows for him. She could see fear as well as resolve etched into his features, a mirror of her own. "I'm coming." Her voice rang out, determined, as she fought against the shadows, squeezing tighter and tighter. With each step toward the glowing threshold, she drew strength from the memories swirling around her, not the ones that chained her, but those that lifted her. Laughter on summer nights, quiet moments with Charles, the smell of old books, and new beginnings. These inspirations fueled her resolve like fire, igniting kindling. "I am not yours," she screamed, her voice echoing like thunder, causing the very floor to vibrate. Just then, a shadow lunged forward and knocked her off balance. She stumbled, but regained her footing. The shadow hissed, slithering closer, and the whispers grew into a cacophony, all telling her to stay. It was trying to drown her in her own memories, ones filled with pain, regret, and desolation. "Jennifer, don't listen to them." Charles's voice rang clearer, his body's outline breaking free from the dark. He reached another hand towards her, his face alight with urgency. The light around him sparkled like shattered glass, every shard a reflection of her hopes. "I can't hold on much longer." She could feel her own energy seeping away with every second. The shadows roared, a primal sound that resonated through the very fibers of her being. Flashes of her past came alive, her stumbles, fears, and every moment they clawed at her. The realization hit her, electrifying. "This isn't just about me," Jennifer shouted against the tide of darkness. "This is us." It wasn't only her freedom at stake. It was the chance to escape this nightmare together. The shadows seemed to pause, faltering at the hint of connection. And just like that, there was a moment of stillness, profound and almost eerie. The voices quieted. She focused harder, envisioning a world where shadows faded. "Take my hand, Jennifer. Now," Charles yelled, his voice anchoring her, pulling her into the light. With a fierce cry, she lunged forward, pushing against the darkness with all that she had. The air crackled, electric. She felt the resistance wane as she reached out to grasp his hand. Their fingers barely brushed, but a wave of warmth surged through her, igniting the corridor of limping memories, but this time with light. The shadows recoiled as if stung, howling in outrage. A violent clash erupted, reverberating through walls, causing them to tremble. For a heartbeat, she felt the gloomy weight lift slightly, allowing a fierce light to burst forth, illuminating every crevice in this space of torment. But before she could finish, the tendrils lunged again, this time more desperate. In an agonizing motion, Jennifer felt them snatch at her heart, the cold fingers tearing at her resolve. "No!" she screamed, tugging her focus to Charles. His expression was a mix of worry and determination. "Don't look back. We need to go. Together," Jennifer shouted, finally feeling the pull of hope, their bond fueling her. As they clasped hands, a wave of blinding light enveloped them. The shadows shrieked a cacophony of terror and rage as they lost their grip, dissolving like mist before the sun. And just as they began to rise through the light, Jenny felt a familiar chill creep beneath her skin, a presence lurking at the edge of her consciousness, teasing her with its silence. "Is this it?" she thought. "Am I finally free?" But even as they launched together toward the unknown, a flicker of worry lingered. Had she indeed escaped, or was something even darker waiting for her on the other side? Her heart raced, and a whisper of doubt crept back in. Had she truly left the shadows behind, or would they follow her, disguised as something even more insidious in this new world? In the depths of her racing thoughts, the light pulsed, brighter than before, daring her to see what lay ahead. What truth awaited Jennifer beyond the portal? And what choices would she need to make to finally claim her freedom? As the blinding light enveloped Jennifer and Charles, a sensation washed over them, almost like floating on gentle waves. They found themselves landed softly on the floor of the old library, still intact and eerily quiet. The shadows that once wrapped around them like chains had vanished, but the air was thick with the weight of their shared experience, an unspoken bond forged in the heart of terror. Jennifer blinked rapidly, heart racing. It felt as though they had been plucked from the depths of darkness and thrust back into the reality they had fought to escape. She turned to Charles, whose eyes sparkled with a mixture of relief and confusion. "We made it," she whispered, breathless. "Did we?" he replied, scanning the room, still alert. "Is it really over?" He stepped closer, each footfall echoing in the now empty library, which felt different, somehow lighter, yet heavy with memories. Jennifer swallowed hard, taking in the wood-paneled walls, the shelves that held countless stories, and the fluorescent lights that flickered meekly above them. "I think we did. We came back," she said, but her voice shook. "But at what cost?" Charles locked eyes with her, the worry threading through his gaze. "You fought them, Jen. You fought for both of us," he said softly. "But those memories, you can't just push them away. They shaped who you are." Jennifer rubbed the back of her neck, the skin still tinged with the remnants of shadows that had gripped her tightly. "I know, but I can't let them define my story. Not anymore." The warmth of determination bubbled in her chest, weighing heavier than the anchors of regret. The library still felt alive around them. The very air seemed to pulse with unspoken tales, as if the books themselves were welcoming her back. She stepped forward, drawn to a particularly old tome that lay open on a nearby table. Dust motes danced in the light, resembling whispers of the past, but very different now. They were not threats, but stories beckoning her to write a new narrative. As her fingers grazed the pages, an overwhelming sense of clarity filled her mind. Every choice she'd ever made, the sacrifices, the pain, the joy, had sculpted her journey into something vibrant and real. "Stories are never truly lost," she declared, a fierce smile breaking across her face. "They evolve." The air rippled with acceptance, and she felt the library embracing her words. Charles took a deep breath, a smile blooming in his eyes as he too began to perceive the change. They had forged a bond that could turn shadows into light, fear into freedom. Turning to him, Jennifer said, "Let us not let this define us. Let us write the next chapter together, a story that has room for both our fears and our hopes." His eyes shone with understanding, and in that moment he took her hand. Together, he promised, standing steadfast beside her. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." With renewed strength, she held on to that truth as they wandered down the aisles of books. Each shelf told stories waiting to be reshaped, memories eager for new life beyond the dark shadows they had escaped. She felt the weight lift, the burdens of the past giving way to endless possibilities. And then, as they reached the exit, a sense of peace settled around them, a reassurance that they were not fleeing, but rather stepping forward into a world filled with new stories. "It's time to find ourselves anew," she said aloud, and he nodded. Together, they would explore every adventure life had to offer. Stepping into the light outside, the sun broke over the horizon, painting the world in golden hues. It felt like a promise, as if the universe conspired in their favor. Holding hands firmly, they stepped off the threshold of the library, ready to write a story of hope, of love, and of resilience. Their lives were waiting to unfold, to be penned, published, and shared with the world. And that was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that are coming your way. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, making sure more wonderful tales reach eager readers like you. And flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this incredible journey with at least 5 friends who need to see it too. Your support means everything. Let us keep this adventure alive.